Hello everybody, welcome back. It always takes me a minute to get up and running.
Pink hydrogen wrapped up neat, nuclear's trick disguised as clean, painted bright for all to see.
I'm Dana, you can call in at 709-589-4406. And the intro songs are exclusively, and the outros are exclusive anti-nuclear songs created by a musician, filmmaker James Lucid on YouTube. Hi Dana, hi everybody. It's the 16th. Holy smoke-a-roos, eh? This February is almost gone in 2025. I wasn't looking good for getting a show in there tonight, but here we are. So that's the good thing. So this was February the 8th, eight days ago. Nano nuclear energy is trading down. Same day. Nano nuclear energy is trading up. Sorry, trading up. So on the same day it was trading down, and on the same day it's trading up. Nano nuclear energy is allegedly a small modular reactor company that doesn't have an application into the regulatory agencies. Zero possibility of making any money on your investment. Zero. You're going to lose, right? Because you have 14 biggest banking institutions bought 3.8 million shares. And 2 weeks later, when the unsuspecting investors who worked all their life for their actual monies seen the stocks rising, didn't understand that you had this was a Ponzi scheme with 14 of the biggest financial institutes. They came out and publicly told you at the Conference of Parties 29 last year, the UN scam demic machine. 2 workers contaminated with radioactive material at Borssele's nuclear plant. So we're trying to get a show in tonight. I'm busted up as usual. That's because I refuse to stop. We're out on the skidoo on Friday, on Saturday, on Sunday today. I'll be on the skidoo tomorrow morning. We got fresh snow tomorrow on top of that. Blizzards and blowing snow. Blowing 80 kilometers an hour the whole weekend. There was one point there yesterday where I couldn't see the front of my skidoo where the snow was blowing that hard. There was someone walking, I would hit him. I still wouldn't probably see him. And I was like, well, if he stays here, I'm in real trouble. So it's a bit of a rough go for the field research expeditions. We're starting to get everything working. I put a floor in the sled today. We're trying to get information on the trails, if it's groomed or... Because we got 900 kilometers of trails, groomed trails here. I got to go quite a distance to get to them, right? Is the problem. It's a statistical nightmare to do what I'm doing, but we're getting it done. 2 workers contaminated. This is the craziest story. This is the most batshit story. This is in Zealand in 2000. No, this is the picture. Is the plant in 2019, rather. Story from the 8th, 8 days ago, a little over a week ago. Both employees were wearing respiratory protection. Well, thank goodness. You'll find out the sarcasm that means. Preventing internal contamination. Well, the radioactive atoms are so small, they can go in through the frolic, the hairs on your body. If they come in contact with any part of your body, you're going to be contaminated. You bring it home, you put it in your laundry, wash your showers, everything is contaminated. Small amount of radioactive material, I love the way they put it. As one of they didn't say a leak, was released during the work, triggering an alarm in the facility, and the area was immediately evacuated. Well, they wouldn't evacuate an area for a small amount. But this is a crazy story. Wait for the punchline. 2 affected workers had radioactive particles on their skin. After decontamination showers, they were clear to go home. If they send them to the hospital, see, all kinds of stuff happens. So they can't do that. Oh, you're okay. It's like a banana. Go on home. A third worker who was also in the room but not wearing respiratory protection left as soon as the alarm sounded and later tested negative for the contamination. Got to make sure you cover all the bases. Being a scumbag is not easy, right? Could this startup compact nuclear reactor revolutionize cancer detection? No. Of course not. What do you think gave them cancer in the first place? Was 1,000 fuel pools splitting atoms directly into the environment for almost 80 years now. And plus all the dumping and all the meltdowns and all the releases from every nuclear power plant got an incinerator burning radioactive material every single day. They have a legal limit they're allowed to release into the environment because nobody's ever challenged them. As cancer rates in the West and globally track upwards, gee, I wonder what's causing all of that. After 80 years of just perpetual radiation particles released into the environment. This stuff never goes away, so as the bioaccumulation over 80 years is really something stupid. Due to the lifestyles, let's blame it on lifestyles, environmental pollution, also known as radioactive fallout. So does the need for the nuclear isotopes used in detecting those cancers in a medical setting, just because it's a medical setting, there's lots of, I got a whole folder on monstrous doctors. So medical settings is not necessarily a good thing. But I mean, there's 300,000 patients die every year from doctors leaving sponges and everything else inside their bodies. But with many reactors built in the 70s and 80s scheduled for shutdown, the material used are becoming rarer and more expensive. A startup from disgusting UK, I'm talking about the nuclear industry, not the people. We like the people. Hopes to ramp up production of these material by using a new radical. It's not a word you want to hear when it comes to nuclear emissions technology. Astral systems, co-founded by Talmon, Firestone, Dr. Tom Wallce-Smith. At least 4 of every 10 doctors are monsters. Employs something called multi-state fusion technology, in its compact reactors, so-called, enable an increased supply of nuclear isotopes used in modern medicine. This is not modern genocides. These reactors are in fact so compact they can fit on an average desk. Well, they're not reactors now, are they? A story by Mike the Butcher, appropriately. Here's a bunch of little goblins, all proud of themselves. And look how stupid they look for posing for their idiot pictures. This can achieve solid-state fuel densities 400 million times higher than those achievable normally, according to their whack jobs. Whereas what we're proposing is placing them in industrial units or in the basements of the hospitals. Putting little nuclear reactors in the basement of the hospitals. That's the new genocide machine now, is it? Represents the best of the United Kingdom. The best monsters, eh? Like, do you got any idea how harmful this stuff is to the victims that they're giving it to? And to the environment? Like, the whole story of so-called therapeutic radiation. I got folders here that if I bring them up, you're going to have nightmares of what they're doing, what happens when you put radiation in the human bodies. They're sadistic, eh? It's about 2 to 3% of the victims will live 5 years. So there's a 97% failure rate. It's a horrible way to die from radiation poisoning. And radiation therapy is radiation poisoning. You might get rid of that one tumor, but now you got 7 more different tumors everywhere else. And none of them are going to be, there's no such thing as a good tumor. A floating nuclear reactor, the world's first nuclear Megayacht, Thor, is unlike anything seen before. No, it's not. We've seen this last year and the year before. Same picture. Same fake story. I've covered this repeatedly over the years. At the center is Thor, a 500-foot nuclear disease factory, nuclear-powered disease factory, calling it a super yacht. The reason nuclear works on the ocean is because they can release as much as they want into the ocean. They're using the ocean as a cooling too, right? And once you take the fuel out, like the floating reactor that academic that the Ruskies got up there in the Antarctic, they recently took the fuel out of the reactor, and they're storing it, they say, in a storage room. You don't use fuel in a storage room, particularly these reactors, which are using plutonium mixed oxide fuel. It's stored in a pool, and the pool is boiling off every day, at least 120,000 liters. If you don't keep it topped up, this is special water. If it's not circulated, it melts down. You don't top it up, the fuel is exposed, it immediately catches fire and melts down. And there's no going back from a meltdown. The entire industry is insane. They've destroyed the future of everybody and every species with just 80 years of emissions. At what point should we say this is insane? At what point should we say this is outrageous? At what point should we say no more? At what point? At what point? Because look what they already got done to you post-Fukushima on top of that. It's past everybody's line, but people are not aware it's happening. They've successfully covered it up for this time period, but eventually the truth has to come out. Kind of reminds me, we got a poll tonight, hope I articulate that. Has the stupid nuclear industries cover-up of Fukushima's melted reactors, 4 melted reactors, and 8 fuel pools that melted down. Each fuel pool got around 4 reactor cores or more into it because they don't have a repository, right? Has that wrecked the future? Has 100% wrecked the future of every species, every human on the planet now has been compromised, and the majority of species now are going extinct because of post-Fukushima effects upon the entire biosphere. The industry is insane is the best way to describe it. They've never been held accountable. They have no incentive not to be evil. And because it's an inbreeding industry, the current generation is seeing what their parents and their great-grandparents and great-grandparents, etc., has gotten away with, and they're emboldened by that. And that's a threat to the future of humanity. Not now, it's a threat right now. We're being destroyed. Like heart problems, liver problems, lung problems, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline, Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, diabetes, Down syndrome, schizophrenia. It's a very long list, besides cancer, of immediate health catastrophic issues. And we're seeing that spike post-Fukushima worldwide. How come? We're seeing babies with dementia. Bad enough with autism and Down syndrome, which is the first studies you do after a nuclear accident. But we're seeing babies and children, 3, 4, 5 years old, with dementia, with Alzheimer's. Children. It's absurd. It's absurd, and everybody's living in denial. Degenerates from the University of Tokyo. These are degenerates. Cement can self-heal when exposed to nuclear radiation. No. The idea is it doesn't work that way. It's known as the Wigner effect. It breaks the integrity, and it's well known in the industry. They're doing that to justify keeping the reactors open longer. They self-heal. After 80 years, you really think you're the first person that, if that was real, that would have figured that out? Of all people, Japanese. A lot more smarter people are there than the Japs. While the findings raised some concern, suggest that nuclear reactors housed in concrete structures may have a significantly longer operational lifespan than previously estimated. So they rolled out a single fake study to quantify keeping their disease factories open forever, basically, in the context of human experience. Because being a scumbag is not enough, right? But this is clearly what we call scumbags. The Wigner effect, the gamma shines, the neutron bombardments, the beta rays, the alphas, the X-rays, break down the integrity of titanium, of any material they use. There's nothing immune to this stuff. Really, cement is going to heal itself. With no precedence to quantify that type of assertion whatsoever. And they're not capable of finding one. In fact, if you look at the problem with every nuclear reactor is the cement breaks down. And when you're talking about containments at 1,000 psi, 1,1800 pounds per square inch, that's the issue, right? That was the reason their original charters, their operational licenses, were limited to 30 years, was because of the well-known Wigner effect from the neutron bombardments and everything else. And it's very easy when you start looking at the nuclear industry and you understand most of the basic stuff about this stuff. You look at the nuclear industry, it's very easy to have nothing but contempt for them for the rest of your life because we've never seen a good nuclear person. You can't name me a single nuclear person on the entire planet that the world says that's a pretty good person. You can't do it. Even the controlled opposition that he rolls out, everybody knows is a moron and a scumbag. These findings plays a crucial role in ensuring the safety, reliability, economic feasibility of nuclear power. A single study with no dissenting voices is going to be used now again to quantify a genocide machine released upon the population and the biosphere and the ecosystem and the water and the oceans. I don't understand why we have so many cowards in the governments and the justice systems. It's not illegal to be a monster if you're in the nuclear industry. Why are we promoting this on our planet? How do we get this complacent? Map reveals nuclear fallout that would happen if Europe's biggest plant explodes. Why do they lie so much? Because every single story, this is what they do. They lie to reinforce the previous lies. I've never seen nothing like it. So no matter which nuclear plant, and they're only acknowledging cesium-137. It shows it covering most of Europe, right? France, Italy, Germany, etc., etc., etc. And the numbers they're talking about, like 1 point E plus 0.5, so that's 100,000, I think it is. And so you're talking about if you multiply to get the square meter, it's 1,500 atoms per square meter, basically. So 1 point E plus 0.5 is, the one is a single, and there's five zeros, right? So it's 100,000. But they're talking about in this one, Becquerel's physical atoms per square meter is 100,000. Like I can show you the numbers of Fukushima. 28 million per square meter is normal. In Tokyo, 240 kilometers away. But we know throughout all the studies from Fukushima that if you get a large release, and Fukushima, of course, downplayed the inventories that were released. So the model behind me is 19.5 days. The model of April the 7th is 26 days of radioactive fallout. Another model of Fukushima, this one here is the French government. This is 20 20 days of radioactive fallout of cesium-137 at 1 million to 10 million atoms per square meter in North America, in Canada, United States. But according to the meatheads, you're only going to get 1,500 atoms a kilogram or 100,000 per square meter. It's absurd. And it suggests that only cesium-137, again, is the only thing you're going to find as normal. Like, the reactors don't run on cesium, they run on uranium and plutonium. A major nuclear incident at the plant could put several European nations at grave risk. Fukushima blanketed the entire planet with hideous and absurd amount of 1 million, 10 million atoms, just as cesium-137 per cubic meter of air. So you blanketed the entire planet over and over and over and over and over, and now we're seeing an extinction event play out. I mean, the industry is nothing but monsters. They really aren't. We haven't seen a single journalist in 10 years now with any zero. Originally, it was dissenting voices, right? A few, not many, but there was some. Now it's nothing but pro-nuclear in every direction. Countries in Europe that could be affected if Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear disease factory explodes. First off, when you look at Zaporizhzhia, what do you see? Farmland. Quite the coincidence. Every nuclear power plant is surrounded by farms. It's the best way to poison everybody with radiation. Surround the nuclear power plants and the fuel pools with farms. So that's what they've done. And the journalists, they put their names on these stories, but clearly they don't write the story. Right? It's written by the International Atomic Energy, the World Nuclear Association, one of the lobbying groups for the nuclear industry. The journalists have put their names on it. They build up an audience of fluff and garbage and nonsense. And then stories like this will come out with their name on it. There's no way, there's zero possibility that a journalist is capable of writing these types of stories. You really got to be deep into the nuclear industry's propaganda machine to be able to write these stories. And so, like, a journalist is truly one of the most nutty creatures we've ever heard tell of on the entire planet. Hi, everybody. How we doing? Let's keep going here. He said, the much less defended Olympic-sized storage pools for spent fuel. Well, the so-called storage pool don't have any containment whatsoever. If you stop the circulation of the water, they melt down. Or otherwise known as ponds. They're not ponds, they're not pools. They're special types of water, and they're boiled off every day, and every liter is hundreds of trillions of anthropogenic man-made atoms that you can't destroy, you can never get rid of, and it never goes away and attacks everything with replicating cells. And every fuel pool, there's 1,000 of them on the planet, are hemorrhaging this radiation into the environment. If the power supply to the ponds dries up, why would you say the power supply to the ponds dry up? Why would you frame it that way? If the power supply is cut off to the ponds and the ponds dry up, the water evaporates. There's a significant nuclear incident where the high-level radiation waste rods blow. The expert added. I mean, the way they framed that is the strangest thing I've ever heard. So, first off, you don't need to lose any water out of the pool for the meltdown to happen in these storage so-called pools. All you need is stop the circulation. It's already heated up and balls off 120,000 liters every day. Balls it off. Because the rods come out of the reactor and they make water in the reactor by splitting atoms. Once you take it out, it never stops splitting atoms. And so they have to replace 120,000 liters in each of the 1,000 pools that I know about worldwide each day. This is a major nuclear accident for each fuel pool that is released daily legally. Of course, they're not going to tell you that's When they say the biggest problem with nuclear fuel is it's dangerous, that's in the storage pool, the biggest problem is it's still splitting atoms that boil 1 million homes and businesses. Do you got any idea how many atoms you got to split to boil a glass of water? Like, hundreds of billions or trillions of atoms. So do you have any idea how many atoms you got to split to boil water every minute for 1 million homes and businesses to power them? It's enough to poison everything on this planet many times over. But the way that kind of poison works, it takes a long time. It's not like you're right alongside the fuel rods themselves, right? But once the atoms are in your body, or the birds or insects or animals or whales or horses or whatever, their body attacks it every second for the rest of their life and builds a tumor around it. But there's many other because you compromise your immune system, so you're much more susceptible to all kinds of pathogens and viruses that were normally harmless and innocuous and benign are now catastrophic because your immune system is compromised from the radiation, which is a foreign entity. Your body doesn't know what it is. It has no autoimmune trigger to defend against it. It attacks with white blood cells perpetually. And this stuff that's in your body, or the animals, birds, or insects, is pulsing energy almost at the speed of light in your body. It's wrecking all kinds of chromosomes and DNA in cells. Your body has to try to repair that every single second and attack the source forever. You can't do it. Can't keep up with it. And as you bioaccumulate more, you drink and you eat and you breathe and you shower and then you wash your dishes. And as you absorb more and more of it, your body has to attack every single one of them perpetually for the rest of your life with white blood cells. Every white blood cell you produce and displaces a red blood cell that carries oxygen and nutrition. And so the way they framed it, if the power supply to the ponds dries up, why would you, if the power supply is cut, the ponds will dry up. That's what they probably should have said, see? Then the water evaporates. Well, as soon as the fuel rod is exposed, the very tip of it, you're talking about it's going to ignite. The zirconium cladding ignites. It burns it around 1800 degrees. That'll boil off the rest of the water. But what's even worse than that is, as the fuel rod starts to get exposed, the zirconium cladding catches fire, burns at 1800 degrees. It ignites the uranium plutonium pellets inside of it that are also coated with zirconium cladding. They burn at 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperature. So you boil off all the water now in the next 10-15 minutes. All of it catches fire at this stage, and immediately everything that it comes in contact with, steel and cement and rebar, everything else, any water you spray on it after, is atomized in aerosol, ionized and radiated, and released directly into the environment. So you can, say you got so much of an inventory, and they like to estimate how much will get out and how much got out and everything else. But it doesn't work that way, because everything you come in contact with becomes radioactive, and it's atomized in aerosol. So everything creates a plume that is catastrophic to everything with replicating cells. And because this stuff spreads out, it's insane, right, how it spreads out? Like that model's only 26 days over there. It shows the plume covering the entire planet in 26 days. You got a plume of radioactive fallout covering the entire planet in 26 days. And you can see it over there. This is absurdness that this would exist on your planet. The only way it can exist is constantly telling so many lies that nobody can make any sense out of it. In terms of the latest modeling, most of the radioactive plume will fall on Ukraine and the Russia's bordering territory. Well, we know that's not true. The plumes cover the entire planet right away, within 20, 30 days. And every model from every country, every study from every country showed that particular attribute. But every time you read the stories, you'll get the perpetual propaganda. It's very coordinated. I don't think there's a single story that shows up in the media that's not written by the International Atomic Energy Agency or the lobbying groups, the pro-nuclear lobbying group. And when you show you pictures like this is one of the drills, I would imagine. These are not, you can't protect yourself with a 6-foot lead suit. So how are you going to protect yourself with rain gear? Because a nuclear scientist is not going to get into that and go into a nuclear wasteland. It's just never going to happen. Nuclear professor is not going to get into that and go into a nuclear wasteland because they know categorically that that's a death sentence for them. They're not doing it. Nobody can go in there and without getting catastrophic. And the nuclear industry is not going in there. Police officers and rescuers have carried out anti-radiation drills to prepare for an emergency situation multiple times since Russia occupied the site. So what the hell is police officers and fire emergency going to do in a nuclear wasteland? They don't even know nothing about nuclear. They're the last ones should be going in there. I think we should put all the pro-nuclear together in one great big building. Don't give them any toilet paper. Only feed them beans. And let them drown themselves in their excrement. The worst health hazard after a nuclear meltdown. What happens in a nuclear meltdown for the victims close by is their organs melt. And you can go look at the heartbreaking stuff from Nagasaki, Hiroshima. Their organs melt and liquefy 15, 20 minutes later, or half an hour later. And you'll see, and if you look up the documentation, you'll see just endless Japanese were found squat down, and they had dropped their pants, and they were excreting their organs because they liquefied. And this worthless subhuman species says nauseated and vomiting, skin redness, hair loss. And how do you not have absurd amount of contempt for these monsters after all this time? How does that actually work? Inducing cancer or even leading to death. But there's congenital malformations. There's just endless amount of orphanages in Belarus and Ukraine of children that were abandoned because they were so severely disfigured from birth. The farmers were digging big trenches and burying their livestock, their newborns, because they were so disfigured. Like, it was so prevalent across Europe. In terms of the latest modeling, most of the radioactive plume will fall on Ukraine and Russia's bordering territory. It's hard for me not to lose my mind sometimes. It's hard for me not to be honest, because you can't say a lot of stuff on YouTube. I can't really articulate how much despicable and disgusting and parasitic these subhuman, whatever you want to call them, are. The pro-nuclear. They know everything I know. I'm telling you, they're aware of it, and they work unbelievably hard to cover up, to lie, manipulate, and deceive, and coerce people into being just completely complacent. 46 confirmed deaths following the Chernobyl. Like, what are they talking about? Like, it's that kind of denial from every direction, particularly the so-called checks and balances, is really something. If you go look up the United Nations, if you go look up Wikipedia, how many people died at Chernobyl, you're going to get the statistics from the United Nations. If you go to ABC, you go to BBC, to CBC, to any media out there, they're going to direct you to United Nations, where they're going to tell you it's 28 to 30 people. They say 46. It's absurd. It's an absurd misrepresentation. 46 million? This is more like it. They've done sex ratio studies in all of Europe. They closed 9,000 400 farms in Ireland, Scotland, United Kingdom, because it's harmless. 9,400 farms closed 3,000 kilometers away. Because you didn't want all kinds of people dropping dead per se. But you can't contain the radioactive foliage. You can't put up a wall and stop it from getting into your food supply, your water supply, into your communities. According to the World Health Organization, which is United Nations. Why would you quote an organization that has no sovereignty over any country? Why would you do that? Because they've captured your countries with literally no opposition. According to the degenerate, monstrous, idiot machine known as the World Health Organization, at very high doses can impair the functioning of tissues and organs. It's hard to appreciate how insidious these people actually are, these organizations are, but I can tell you something. That they're the very, 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 very worst humans on this planet are these people. They're the most unworthy of being allowed to breathe here as any unworthy person could be. Should be illegal for anybody who joins the organization to breathe here ever again. Had Japan's 2024 Noto Peninsula earthquake shifted the landscape? You know, the weekend I got a folder put together on the Noto Peninsula 2024 January 1st earthquake. And so I got a special show put together on that. I got a special show put together on France and the French Polynesian Islands and Christmas Island, places like that. And the Shika nuclear power plant in Japan. Well, we still only got one or two pictures, and the pictures are like a crack in the ground, and they're like you're in a town. And the picture's not like you can see the whole town. Like you might be able to see the wheels of a car way up the road. They purposely avoided showing us any pictures. Now we know they said in Shika Shika community outside the nuclear power plant was a 7.7 on the 7 scale of Japan's Shindu earthquake scale, which is 1 to 7. And it does in increments of a half. 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, all the way up to 7. And Shika, which was isolated for well over 3 weeks, but we still have no pictures of it. There was a news crew that went to the Shika nuclear power plant on day 10, day 12 or something like that. We covered it for 25 days. Because clearly something happened. And I'm going to do a recap on that. Hopefully this week or next week. I got a feeling next week, couple of weeks, we'll be really busy for research. That's the plan. And we got to get some field studies done, right? And it's now or never for this kind of stuff. It's just so difficult to do anything when it comes to research. And you're going to be, out there minus 20 wind chills. Remember my first trip out last week, I got stuck for 2.5 hours. I got all the equipment with me from now on, don't mind you, so that won't happen again. But it sure takes the good out of you when you're out there in sub-zero temperatures and you're exhausted, you're up to your waist in snow, and it's very disheartening. But you got to have faith, and you got to remain calm, and you got to just keep trying to solve the problem. You're in a real bad spot, right? We're blowing 80 kilometers an hour, and you just got to have faith that you've done everything you're supposed to do, and if you keep working at it, you'll get yourself out of there. And sure enough, eventually got out of there, but it was a little extreme. It took the good out of me for a couple of days, but I'm back. Anyway, that part of the coastline rose up 13 to 14 feet for 75 to 100 kilometers or 100 miles, I'm not sure. And we covered it extensively. You can see that center picture there where it lifted. But it was 75 miles of the coastline rose 13 feet up. And we're talking like a half-mile wide. So it was 6 harbors now are dry, where the boats are out of the water. And you're never getting, you have to move them to put them back in the water because the whole harbor is lifted up. It was really something. But I'm going to keep that story to cover in my Noto Peninsula, Ishikawa Prefecture's story that's coming up in the near future. I got the folder pretty well ready to go. I got some crazy stuff in that folder. Fukushima plant, this is Thursday, the 17th of March 2011. Fukushima plant now reasonably stable. On the 13th, on the 17th, that's 6 days after the earthquake. That was, on the 15th, the last reactor had blown up, right? So to say that that is stable, and that's the Medusa Reactor 3, and Reactor 4 is completely gone. Reactor, we know 1 and 2 because we have the luxury of hindsight. We can quantify that, including the common spent fuel pool is probably gone too, and possible Reactor 6. But certainly Reactor 1, 2, 3, and 4, the spent fuel pools in each of the buildings, there's 2 spent fuel pools, they're all gone. Well, that's just a single one of these buildings is worse than all the nuclear meltdowns in history combined. And we have 36 reactors missing. Reactor cores. There's typically 8 reactor cores at the top of each of the buildings. So when I seen this story, Fukushima plant now reasonably stable according to the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is not an International Atomic Energy Agency. They're a military-industrial complex, and that's how they've taken over each of your countries. But they've done it sneakily. They have no, they lose all credibility. When you look at the actual buildings, and they're saying that it's stable, how can it be stable? It won't be stable ever. You're only 13 years into this nightmare. I really disrespect these people. Well, they're not even people, are they? The things they're doing. Military helicopters used to dump waters. They only made 2 or 3 runs and they gave it up. All 600 helicopter pilots at Chernobyl freaking died in the first couple of weeks. Which in Chernobyl was brutal, but it's nothing. It's like a paper towel compared to Fukushima. Does anybody really think that Fukushima, with 4 reactor buildings and 8 fuel pools melting down, Chernobyl was a brand new reactor. Chernobyl was a graphite reactor. Chernobyl was a small reactor. Fukushima, each of the reactor cores are mass of pure uranium, pure plutonium. And the case of Reactor 3 was a used plutonium mixed oxide fuel. The nightmare of nightmares. The idiot machine. They're just idiot machines, this industry. One great big, everybody in it seems to be an idiot machine. The worst humans you can make went to the nuclear industry. The International Atomic Energy degenerates had said the situation at the Japan's earthquake damaged. They always like to throw that out there. Oh, tsunami earthquake damage. Don't care, man. It melted down. Don't care how it happened. That no longer matters. What matters is you destroy the future of every species and every human. Destroy the future of Earth. And you can't put the genie back in the bottle. And you won't even owe up to it. You won't even acknowledge that anybody on the planet has ever been sick for radiation. What does that tell us? Everybody in the hospital gets sick from it, don't they? Like this is literally a monster industry. Not even monsters. Is now reasonably stable. Helicopters were pouring tons of water into the facility to try and prevent the meltdown of the fuel rods. This is on the 17th. This is on the 17th when all the reactors and fuel pools had already blown up. This is days after this has already happened. And they're saying to prevent the meltdown of the fuel rods when all of the fuel rods are melted down in 4 buildings. The disrespect that you should put on their shoulders in proportion to what they've done to you would call for the death penalty for everybody in the nuclear industry. And I'm not kidding you. That's what everybody in this industry has helped to cover up and helped to perpetrate these crimes against humanity and the species. At some point, you're going to have to acknowledge that they should have been and need to be held accountable. At some point, we got to hold them accountable. What are we waiting for? The most horrible creatures in human history. It hasn't got worse, they say, which is positive. It can't get any worse. Everything melted down. Everything blew up. How could it get any worse? How does that get worse? Everything's gone. And they're still telling the same lies today. All the media screeching the lies in every direction every day. You can't keep up with it. The Japanese engineers worked through the night to restore power cables to the damage. You can't restore power to buildings that don't exist anymore. And the media doesn't just write lies like this. They actually do lies. They go video lies where they're pretending they're in Japan, pretending they're on top of a building to your left that doesn't even exist. Even today, refuse to acknowledge that these are fake. And everybody lets them off. Everybody's always looking for evidence the media lied to them. What are you waiting for? Do you know I created this over 10 years ago? How come you're not taking screen captures and mailing that out to all your friends? Or on your Twitter or your Facebook or your Instagram and asking a question. Why are they pretending they're on a building that don't exist? Don't you care about your loved ones, your friends and your families enough to show them something that's incontestable, unassailable? What kind of proof do you need, really, to get upset and angry and motivated? What is it you need? What is it, really, what is it? If that's not enough to motivate you, what the fuck is? If that doesn't raise an eyebrow, it doesn't even raise a fucking eyebrow? Not even worthy of mailing out? Not worthy of printing it out and putting it wherever you can find it? Not worthy of... Do you got any idea what priorities mean? Look up that in the dictionary someday. Because you got them dead to right in this picture right there. And I can't hold them accountable. You can. We all can. I can't do it on my own. Not like we're not trying. Not like we don't try. Not like we don't work ourselves to death every day, every week, every month, every year, every decade. So that you can have a little bit of a future. So your loved ones might have a future. So your kids can probably, hopefully have some kind of a future. Not about me. I can fucking quit this anytime and live out my life. You can't have a future if you don't take this information and put an end to this fucking industry. And it's a difficult subject, so I'm here to guide you. But I can't twist your wrist to do the moral and ethical thing. I shouldn't have to, should I? Everybody sees this picture should have been outraged. Should have been the top priority. Why is the media to my... This is not just the only media. This is ABC Australia, by the way, Cecilia Vega. This is just a fraction of the media that pretended that they were at the top of the building to your left. They're doing it because it's an extinction event. They sold you out. And you don't need any more evidence than that picture right there. That these are awful people. And there unequivocally should be some kind of a penalty for doing something like that. They hope to restart the pumps needed to pour cold water and overheating fuel rods and avert a catastrophe. This is on the 17th. The reactors already blew up. They're already blown up. The original footage, this was released originally. Every nuclear scientist on the planet looked at it and then closed their eyes. Every nuclear academic on the planet looked at it and said the fuel pools and the fuel rods and the reactors are gone. And kept their pie hole shut. Every nuclear professor, every nuclear student, every nuclear scientist, every nuclear engineer, every nuclear physicist, the whole bloody lot. They all knew back then when you seen the picture right away. And none of them come out and warned you. Not one. Look, that's not that's a monsters, industry of monsters, isn't it? Isn't that what's going on here? That's an industry of nothing but cowards. How can a nuclear scientist look in the mirror and not say coward to themselves? How can they not hate themselves every time they see their reflection in a window or a glass or anywhere else? How can they not hate themselves? Oh, because they're not humans, are they? They're definitely cowards and avert a catastrophe. How can you avert a catastrophe when you got all the reactors blown up? I'm astounded that all these absurd amount of years later, and there's not 1,000 people or even 500 or even 100 people or even 20 people out there, not even 15, not even 10, but maybe 5 people out there doing the best they can to educate you and help you so you might have a future. I don't understand, see? I can't rationalize. I just can't. And you can't cover every lie in a story, let alone, or you'll only get to 2 or 3 stories a day. Even if TEPCO manages to connect to power, how are you going to connect power to buildings that don't exist anymore, see? It's not clear the pumps will work as they may have been damaged by a natural disaster or explosions, meltdowns. Not explosions, but nuclear meltdowns. The explosions are caused by the releases from the nuclear meltdowns. Like, I physically get weak and get sick when I'm when I'm getting these stories ready. I'm sat there and I'm reading the story, and I physically get sick because I'm reading something written by a real-life monster. And that the world is pretending that monsters don't exist. When you got to look no further than the nuclear industry, and you can't look at a single one of them without actually realizing that that's a monster. Well, you're living in a strange twilight zone, I can tell you that much. Repair work will stop tomorrow to allow the helicopters and the fire trucks to resume pouring water in the Fukushima Daiichi plant, 240 kilometers north of Tokyo. Let me run that by you. Repair work will stop to allow helicopters and fire trucks. Repair work. You think somebody's there repairing? Do you see anybody there repairing anything? You see a bunch of people running around. You see a bunch of lights and a bunch of excavators, backhoes and tractors and bulldozers. Do you? No, you don't. You know why? Because it's nuclear meltdowns. And I guarantee you there's no nuclear scientists go within 100 miles of it. It's nuclear meltdowns. It's the homeless and the destitute and the victims of society, the immigrants that don't speak the language. I'm just so broken boy. Because, I've done all these research expeditions. We see an extinction event. I can't pretend it's not happening. Ever. I can't live a day without trying to do something to make the world a bit better because there's so few people out there that are trying. As long as somebody's doing something every day, there's a little bit of hope. Today, military helicopters dumped about 30 tons of water into 2 reactors. That's not true either. They made 4 runs, and they could pick up a little less than a ton of water each. The radiation levels, and we got the videos, the radiation levels were so high that when they dumped the water, they were so far away, none of it reached the buildings. It was a symbiotic gesture so that the world can be complacent again. All 600 helicopter pilots at Chernobyl died within the first couple of weeks. Fukushima was at least thousands of times worse. Pure uranium, pure plutonium, massive inventories. Each reactor in the 36 reactors that were lost in 4 buildings, because the fuel pools are full of reactor cores, are equal to at least 100 Chernobyls because they're pure uranium, pure plutonium. Chernobyl was a graphite. Chernobyl was a small reactor. Chernobyl was a new reactor. These are huge reactor cores at Fukushima. Latest image from the plant showed severe damage, with 2 of the buildings a twisted mangle of steel. Preparatory work so far not progressed as fast as we hoped. Official from Degeneratepco told a news briefing. A cold snap is said to be hampering the effort, while work has also been slowed by the need to frequently monitor radiation levels to protect workers. On the 17th, this is what the buildings would have looked like. There's nothing left. It was all gone. And so the story they're selling you and that right there, but by the International Atomic Energy Agency, no less, is so outrageous it's hard to articulate it. It's like you're in a, like, say you're, this is a terrible story, of course. Say you're in a restaurant and a serial, shooter comes in there and starts shooting everybody. You shoot everybody there. They got no face mask on. They got no, you can see who they are. You got pictures of them, for goodness sakes. And you go to trial and the jury's like, not guilty. Because they work for the nuclear industry. Well, they're allowed to come in and kill you. They work for the nuclear industry. And you go home and you tell everybody, you spend years, decades campaigning to try to wake up the world, and everybody laughs at you. You're stupid. The jury said they're not guilty, so shut up. Yeah, but here's all the evidence. I got pictures of them. The security camera got pictures of them. We got videos of it all. They confessed. The whole list goes on and on and on. They're like, shut up. Leave them alone. The jury said they're not guilty. Get on with your life, moron. And they poisoned your food. And they poisoned your water. You're like, shut up, stupid. The jury said they're not guilty. That's what you're basically up against for the majority. They're so, like, they watch TV, they become so complacent. The only thing outrages them is whatever the TV tells them to be outraged about. That's the most dangerous society we ever come across. Leaking. Does that look like a fucking leak to you? I agree. That looks like a leak to me. That's what it is. It's a leak. Oh, look, they got a little leak there. Like, Dana, shut up, boy. The buildings are destroyed. Shut your mouth. They got a leak. It's in the media. They said so. Dana, the buildings are destroyed. Oh, they got a little leak there. Shut up, boy. Somebody's so stupid. It's just a leak. Look at it. Dana, the buildings are destroyed. Don't be so foolish, boy. Stop being a conspiracy theorist. But look at it, Dana, the buildings are destroyed. Come on, you're making a molehill out of nothing. It's just a leak. The media went there and said everything is okay. So there, shut up. I've seen it on TV, Dana. Yeah, but here's the evidence. I don't give a fuck about your evidence. You're not on TV. Shut the fuck up, Dana. Yeah, how many times I've heard that over the years? Actually heard that. I've seen it on TV, Dana. Yeah, that's because people get lulled into that complacency and they're convinced that that the media wouldn't lie to them. The media wouldn't lie to you. The other media would come out and tell you. I've heard that so many times originally in the first number of years. It used to shock me sometimes, but now it doesn't. Nothing shocks me anymore. Washington and other foreign capitals have expressed growing alarm about radiation leaking. Radiation is leaking. The buildings detonated. They actually detonated. That's Reactor 3 detonating. Plumes never leaked. They covered the entire planet. Massive, unprecedented, monstrous amounts of radioactive fallout. No, Dana, they're leaking. I'm just heartbroken that the world has this one opportunity to do something they won't regret. They can always look back and say, well, we done the right thing. We fought tooth and nail so you can have a future. They put your lives above their own, and so you might have a future. Your children might have a future. It's equivalent to parents waiting until the cars are speeding the fastest as they can, telling their children to cross the road. And when the children get ran over and killed by the speeding cars, and it's all on cameras, and the police says, my goodness, you're a good parent. At least you stood there and watched them get killed. That's the best thing you could have done for them. It makes as much sense, right? I mean, study after study showing the plumes covering the planet, covering North America, covering Canada, covering the United States. Videos of the media is pretending they're on a building. That doesn't bother anybody. That doesn't motivate anybody. That does. I made that picture over a decade ago, and I'm still basically probably one of the maybe five people on the entire planet that has used that picture. And all of these people you see there in the media, right? Cecilia Vega, Rupert Winfield Hayes, CBS set, Dorn Senators, they all make about $1 million a year, each year. And they fly all over the world, and they interview the big rock stars and all the famous scientists. And they're living life like nobody else on the planet. They're the rock stars, the superstars of journalism. All they had to do was cut everybody's throat on the planet. Here we are on Reactor 4. I don't know what to say sometimes. Only that I ain't never going to stop. I ain't never giving up. I ain't never going away either. I ain't never going to forgive. I am not ever going to forgive them for what they got done. And I'm going to throw a great big fucking wrench into their cog, into their machine wheels every chance I get. I sometimes can't accept that the world won't fight back. I know that's pretty fucking stupid, because clearly the world's not going to fight back. But see, I can't accept that. I just can't sit in silence. I don't know how to do it. And if I don't come out and attack this industry as much as I can, I feel guilty, so guilty I can't live with it. I just can't live with it. And I'm brutally tired tonight. I haven't stopped since Thursday. I haven't stopped. But I can't, in good faith, not come out and try anyway. I don't understand how anybody else could. Could do any different, right? How can the world not be disgusted and revolted by this industry? Like, you know, I would love to meet these journalists and ask them why they done that. I'd like to see the look on their face when somebody asked them, why did you pretend you were on top of Reactor 4? Would they go poopy pants on me if I asked them that in person? I don't know. These are clearly nuts to pretend they're on a building that doesn't exist. And why would you do that? Why would the producers, the owners of the medias, why would they pretend they're on a building that don't exist? Oh, that's right, because it's an extinction level event. It's embarrassing that there's people on the planet that are able to do that and get away with it. And we've been showing that picture every day, or video every day, for how long? For at least a decade. I don't know what you're saying, Dana.
We are here inside Reactor 4 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant that was severely crippled during the earthquake and tsunami of 2011, leading to the country's worst nuclear disaster.
So how many people really think, because that's actually Reactor 4 over there, that's the building she says she's 150 feet above the stump there. How many people really don't think that's disgusting? Now, she can't do it without the owners of CNN, without the producers, the editors, the videographers, the sound man, everybody else. She got to get a budget to do all she thinks she's doing. She's up on the CNN with that video over and over and over that doesn't. There's a lot of people participated in that lie. Like, we're talking hundreds of people. And then there's their family and friends and loved ones who've seen that and didn't question her or laughed about it. What kind of future are we leaving for whatever's going to survive this? They're doing it because it's an extinction event, right? But what kind of future are we leaving? Because how can you have a future with this happening? And how can that be acceptable? I can't quantify it. I can't keep up with the lies they tell. The events of last Friday triggered a series of destructive explosions that compromised the reactors, the nuclear reactors, in the spent fuel storage tanks. Well, they're not tanks. They're pools. They're at the top of the buildings. They're not tanks. Right, so the misrepresentation of what is actually going on. Why can't I find that video? Here, I got another way, maybe. It's just I really want to be able to ask these people that question. I want to go to wherever they are and say, hey, with a big picture, are you really on top of Reactor 4, you disgusting parasite? Don't they deserve that? Don't they deserve somebody getting into their face? Don't these people really deserve that? Don't they deserve someone saying, are you a coward? Are you a monster? Don't they deserve that? At what point, what does it take for this world to make a stand against? Because you can clearly hold these people accountable. They're clearly not on top of the building to the left. Is this embarrassing that we are on a planet where we're afraid, where we can't confront the monsters, where the police won't arrest them? It's not illegal to do what they've done. It's not illegal to be monsters if it's with the nuclear industry. As long as it's with the nuclear industry, there is no such thing as a crime. I'm just trying to find the video and I can't seem to find it. It got up and left my computer. I've never seen anything like it. Like, that video should be right there for me. It's not. At some point I gotta stop, just go back to the show here, but I don't know what to make of that. How can I not? Anyway, let's keep going, I guess. There's one last chance here. Let me check. Not looking good. I can find everything but the video. Let's keep going. Here's a good one. This is one of my favorite ones. You really like this one. Fukushima reactor leak was plugged with liquid glass. So the building that blew up, ejected reactor cores and the fuel pools out of the building, Reactor 3 and Reactor 4, was fixed with liquid glass. It's a mixture of sawdust, newspaper, and liquid glass. So they took sawdust, newspaper, liquid glass, and he fixed those buildings, plugged the leaks, boy. So how demented have you got to be to write that story? Is there anything too evil for the nuclear industry to do? There's not. Many Tokyo residents stayed indoors today. Well, you couldn't get on a plane. Everybody that had any money flew out of Japan and didn't go back. Cold snap with heavy snow to the worst affected areas. Remember they talked about the yellow radioactive fallout and called it pollen? There's no lie. The ones that live in denial, sometimes I wish I was like them, you know. Just blissful ignorance. But I'm not. I don't. Airless rabbit in Japan bolsters radiation concerns. Remember that story? I remember that story. That was August, I think. August 2011. Rabbits being born with no ears. The radiation, the rabbits were born to a farm near Nami. Has no ears. It took soil samples near the breeding to detect the radioactive material at 992,000 atoms a kilogram. You got any idea how crazy that number actually is? We're on time at iodine 131. For every 131, there's 10 times more 132, 30 times more 133, 31 times more iodine 129. Like, the whole story is crazy, you know? Has the stupid nuclear industry cover-up Fukushima's 4 melter reactors and 8 fuel pools full of reactor cores wrecked the future? Yeah, I think that's a pretty polite thing to say, actually. So think about the farms in Nami at 1 million atoms a kilogram. So 66.6 million atoms per square meter. And cesium-137, 134 was at 70 million, or 700,000. So it's almost 1.6 million atoms per kilogram of just cesium and iodine 131. This is absurd. The most absurd numbers you can imagine. It took 7 years, but they moved a lot of people, especially children, back to the nuclear wasteland because the world is just completely lost. So we presume the mother rabbit ate 1 kilogram of polluted grass for 4 days. Its internal radiation exposure would be 844 millisieverts, 844,000 microsieverts. Just the most, almost a full sievert. They're the most batshit crazy numbers imaginable. I just can't even wrap my mind around it. They're only acknowledging a little bit of cesium and a little bit of iodine 131. The biggest byproduct of the radiated fuel rod is the curium isotopes. In humans, deformities such as missing fingers began to appear from exposures beginning at 800 to 1,000, which is a full sievert, millisieverts. In lab animals, irregularities in the vertebrae have been discovered after exposures of just 100 millisieverts. It's quite the story, isn't it? After the Chernobyl accident, 2 deformed animals, deformed human babies, were born in contaminated areas. Would you like to see some pictures? Hang on, I'll show you some of these pictures. This is worth your look. There's nothing pretty about what I'm going to show you, by the way. But if you don't see the truth, how are you supposed to know what it looks like? I've been at this a long time. It still bugs me. I don't know if that's the right word, but... I'll try this again here. Here we go. Well, actually, let me do it this way. What I'm going to do, I might as well go for broke. Hang on, I'll show you some studies and pictures at the same time. I got 2 folders. Here's the studies. It's just madness, isn't it? I don't know how the nuclear industry can look in a mirror. I don't get that at all. The influence of post-Chernobyl fallout and birth defects and abortion rates in Austria. What they call congenital malformations. You have no idea. The influences of post-Chernobyl fallout on birth defects and abortion rates. We already covered that one, didn't we? Trends in human sex odds at birth in Europe and Chernobyl nuclear plant accident. They study male to female ratios because that's how they quantify the entire population must have been irradiated. A prenatal loss of 400 male fetuses in the Czech Republic, and the pro-nuclear would come out and say they should never have done it. Nothing would have happened. But there's orphanages and orphanages and orphanages of abandoned and disfigured children that have been completely abandoned. The nuclear industry could protect and help and make their life so much better, but they won't. They won't acknowledge it, not for 1 second. Secondary sex ratio trends in associated gender-specific births near nuclear facilities in France and Germany. But that's Chernobyl pictures I'm showing you. The Chernobyl, what they call, look up the documentary Chernobyl Hearts. It's by a foundation from United Kingdom. And here's one of the pictures of the women. Non-thyroid cancers in northern Ukraine. Non-thyroid cancers. Because the majority of the cancers they would acknowledge was only thyroid. But in order to have thyroid cancer, you got to have a saturated thyroid or anthropogenic man-made radiation, which means they're producing radioactive hormones, which is going to cause absurd health impacts, right? But the reality of it was, it's not just cancer, it's congenital malformations. There's heart problems, liver problems, lung problems, catastrophic issues for the children. That's one of the women from the foundation in the United Kingdom that were getting the victims that were abandoned to the these orphanages are just horrific place to leave any child, let alone a child that's so vulnerable, disfigured. Congenital abnormality registry in Belarus. These are hard pictures to look at. But how do you know the truth if you don't look at it? How does that work? Falling from the Chernobyl accident, overall cancer incidences in Finland. But it's not just cancer. You can't just say cancer. Autism, Down syndrome is the first stuff they're looking for after a nuclear meltdown, for goodness sakes. Down syndrome time clustering in Belarus. You see the same thing for Scotland, by the way. But in Ireland, in Belarus and Ukraine, there's orphanages after orphanages after orphanages like this with children just completely abandoned. One nurse for 30, 40 disfigured, dysfunctional children is just... And the employees for the nuclear power plants, for instance, the best health care. The victims of the nuclear industry get nothing. Non-thyroid cancers in Belarus. Chernobyl fall in prenatal mortality in England and Wales. And the Irish foundations, this is another picture of them, would go to Chernobyl and take children from the orphanages that are abandoned and bring them, fly them in to Ireland so they can have a Christmas that they would never understand unless they done that to them. Disfigured from the Chernobyl radioactive fallout. But of course, the United Nations says only 28 people died. I don't know how anybody can look those in the eyes without calling them monsters. Chromosome aberration, Norwegian reindeer following the Chernobyl. You're going to find that in the children too, aren't you? Assessment of the influence of Chernobyl and birth defects, abortion rates in Austria. Like, you wouldn't believe the stuff that I got, that I've read, and the studies and books and documentaries. You wouldn't believe it. I have nightmares constantly. Estimated lifetime effect dose to hunters and their families in the 3 most contaminated counties in Sweden after the Chernobyl nuclear plant accident. So when you contaminate the whole planet, do you call that an accident or do you call it an event? Because it sure seems like an event. The differences in the effects of radiation on the abundance of animals in Fukushima and Chernobyl is the same as the children post-Chernobyl and Fukushima. And this disgusting maggot, Geraldine Thomas. How can people like that even exist? The things she's done are crimes against humanity and continues to do are just the most frightening. I mean, I've done so many presentations on that monster, and she's still a professor. She's still radiating children until they die. Every day. Sometimes I can't even look in the fucking mirror. Incidences of illegal abortion in Sweden after Chernobyl, because I've been at this for so long. How come the world doesn't? How come only the nuclear industry matters? How come the 8 million species don't matter? How come you don't matter? How come your children, your friends, your families, your loved ones don't fucking matter? Because I want to know. Ionizing radiation, human gender proportions at birth. Well, clearly we know what's going on. Clearly they know. Whatever I'm showing you, they know. Way better than I do. Legally induced abortions in Denmark. Of course, you hear all the pro-nuclear saying what a waste of time that was. But when you look at abandoned children in the orphanages because of the radiation, it's something. We should be ashamed to call ourselves humans as long as there's a nuclear industry on this planet. Pregnancy outcome in Finland after Chernobyl. Well, I mean, the parents, unfortunately, they were in a place where they knew what was happening, and they'd done that because they didn't want to abandon the children to these heartbreaking places. Delayed effects of accidental radiation exposure, 15 years of follow-up after Chernobyl. My apologies. I should have turned the microphone down. So these foundations, that's the Irish Foundation, going down and trying to show the children that love exists. Bless their hearts, my goodness. Bless every one of these angels for doing that. Trust me. Pregnancy outcome in Norway and Chernobyl. Why do we have so many studies like that? Well, because the effects were real, weren't they? Early infant mortality, West Germany, before and after Chernobyl. And it wasn't just mortality, of course. For every mortality, there was 100 congenital malformations. Trends in birth-sex ratio in the vicinity of research reactor. Research reactor, very low-powered reactors. But they're doing studies. This is 2020, by the way. They're doing studies to see if there's more males than females being born, because that would quantify that the whole population must have been irradiated. That's why they're doing those studies. Human sex ratio at birth and residential proximity to nuclear facilities in France. And of course, France now, for 18 administrations, have refused to help the victims from Niger and from the French Polynesian Islands. And they admit that every single human in the French Polynesian Islands was brutally radioactive. But the French government, for 18 administrations, for 75 years, refused to acknowledge there was any adverse side effects whatsoever. You can't keep up with the evil. This industry is so evil that we do the best we can. Like I got myself ran into the ground every day. I run myself right down into the ground. I love it too. Don't get me wrong. But I run myself into the ground every day trying to do the best I can. And there's not a day goes by that I don't work very hard on the things you're seeing right now. Radioactive fallout, neural tube defects. It's like they don't know nothing about it, but they'll tell you it's like a banana, it's like a potato chip, it's like walking in sunshine, it's like sleeping next to somebody. But clearly not. Clearly never was, never could be, never would be. And yet they're allowed to tell those lies, which permeates through society, so that they can get away by carrying out this carnage against humanity and the most vulnerable of society. And every nuclear power plant is surrounded by farms. Do you really think that's going to turn out good? Do you really think they didn't know what they were doing? Do you really think they're not poisoning you every direction possible because there is no resistance, and now they become emboldened by a lack of resistance? And it's not a crime. It's not a crime to destroy you and your friends and your families and your loved ones, your community and your planet and the species with radiation. It's not a crime. It's not illegal. And Congress and parliaments don't have the authority to make it illegal. Only the non-regulatory agency, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, has the authority. And even if they did make it illegal to poison you with radiation, the next administration will appoint new people at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission will reverse that decision. It's not illegal to poison you. So it's not a crime to do what they're doing. It's not a crime. But not one of them are going to go down and tell those victims that they didn't get sick by the radioactive fallout from Chernobyl, is it? Potential for disease initiation by inhaling beta-emitting nuclear particles. Like, you don't got to look any further than Chernobyl to see that it's catastrophic, unbelievable, unacceptable, inconceivable, unimaginable adverse health effects are just blatant. It's blatant. Infant mortality after Chernobyl. Oh, why are you doing stories like that for? Studies like that for? Why are you doing all of these studies? Pregnancy outcome in Sweden after Chernobyl. Effects of the accident Chernobyl atomic energy plant on the outcome in pregnancy. You sure see a lot of studies like that, don't we? They don't have pictures in those studies, do they? Because I can read you all these studies. They don't really mean anything without a few pictures, do they? Dental abnormalities in children and people living in radionuclides contaminated regions. And so Britain got this weird, it's not all of Britain by no means, but certain sections of Britain you see all these people with terrible teeth. It's because they were left in a radioactive nuclear wasteland and they kept it away from them. And their loved ones, their parents and grandparents were poisoned by it. And that's why you see this particular dental abnormalities in that part of the world. The Donneray and Sellafield are both surrounded by farms as far as you can see. Poison far away. I mean, this is an industry that you cannot let continue to operate the way it's. You can't let it continue to destroy the integrity of the chromosomes and the DNA and the genetic makeup of humanity and the species. The option for letting that happen is not there. You have to stop this, and you have to protect the female population of this planet at all costs. Because the females are 4 times more vulnerable than the males on this planet. Did you hear that? 4 times more vulnerable. If you take out the female population, what happens to the population? It disappears, right? That's why you don't clean the insects off your windshields anymore. Abnormal retinal pigment as a major determination for radiation-induced congenital eye defects. You know, I got a friend of mine down here who's had their house for like 50 years. And they got wood stove and wood heat and wood furnaces, stuff like that. And one of the biggest problems with wood was when you bring the wood into your house, you have a lot of insects. And they don't have any insects in the wood anymore. But they have all kinds of pesticides there to kill the insects, especially in the wintertime, right? But they don't have to do it anymore, and that blows their mind. And nobody talks about it. Nobody asks the question. Because it always comes, if the minute you start looking at these kinds of things, it always comes back to the nuclear industry. That's where you always end up, if you know how to look at all. Ultimately, that's what you end up seeing, is the nuclear industry. Leukemia incidences after iodine-131 exposures. Effects of radiation on the reproductive system. So there's an awful lot of studies like that, isn't there? But you need pictures to really drive those points home. Prenatal irradiation-induced brain and cognitive impairments. Really, from radiation? Never heard of it. Human sex ratio at birth after atmospheric weapons testing. Human sex ratio at birth, they're looking for more males than females. Because the whole planet was irradiated. Which meant every species was. That is probably one of the most terrifying statements anybody will ever make. It's one of the most terrifying, monstrous betrayals we can come up with. Let's do the poll again. Has the stupid nuclear industry cover-up of Fukushima and the 4 melted reactors that melted down, the 8 fuel pools that melted down, wrecked the future of every species? Well, I ran out of room there, right? But as you know what I mean? Yeah, of course it has. Of course it has. Oh. Awesome. James Lewis has been pumping out the music again. You gotta love it, man. It's so cool. I don't even know which song to pick anymore. He's got so much there. That's probably the best statement imaginable. Because I can tell you one thing, he's putting the work in, among other things. He's got it, man. He gets it. Secular trends in newborn sex ratio. Incidents of illegal abortion and congenital abnormalities in Hungary. It's quite a coincidence. I hear it for everywhere else too, post-Fukushima and post... I mean, we got children out there now with dementia. Children with dementia. Children. Because the world remains silent. Let the nuclear industry get away with crimes against humanity over and over and over. Down syndrome in Scotland, 1978 to 89. Schizophrenia. In the aftermath. Because like obesity doubled in Japan post-Fukushima. In the first year, almost doubled. And that was a sign of radioactive brain damage, which caused the hormones to make people, it manifested as obesity. In America right now, 74% of the population is obese. In Canada, it's around 90% plus. And these statistics are because of Fukushima, post-Fukushima statistics. Before Fukushima, we had nowhere near those numbers. Nowhere near. So we create this nut, like, how can the nuclear industry not care that these victims live in such squalor with nothing and go on telling the world that they're the heroes, that they're the saviors, that they have the moral high ground. They have a moral compass. Anyway, I didn't even think I was going to get a show in tonight. I'm so burnt out. But I can't justify, if I can do the show, I can't justify not doing it. Tomorrow, we're getting snow again. I'll be on a skidoo gone again tomorrow. Eventually, we're going to get pictures and stuff out and videos for you. But I'm struggling right now. I'm just struggling to keep, to do everything, right? And I'm doing much better. I've taken a few falls in the last couple of months that have set me back a long way. And I've taken a few nasty falls the last one. I still got 3 bad fingers. These 3 fingers are bad, and they're coming on pretty good. And 4 fingers in that hand, because I fell the last time a few weeks ago. I put my hands behind me to try to catch myself, and that didn't work out. And it's because I'm so busy. Just bear with me here. The whole story's absurd, isn't it? And then the last show we done was on MOX fuel being reprocessed. I don't know what do you call MOX fuel that's reprocessed again that France and Japan is planning on doing? Besides absurdly evil, what do you like? Is like we know that when you take uranium plutonium that's already used or weapons and reclaim the uranium plutonium, that's called plutonium mixed oxide fuel. It's an abomination. First off, the emissions, radioactive fallout from the nuclear power plants, fuel pools, or from nuclear accidents is 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. When you take that stuff and put it through a chain reaction again, it's totally different. It's all hot. Everything is super hot particles. When you take it and put it through a chain reaction again, I don't even know how to articulate it. It's so evil, so dangerous, and so important, so urgent that can't happen. That kind of hate. How is that allowed? How is that acceptable? That they can get away with stuff like this? How the frig is that acceptable? Anyway. James went all in again. He donated $550 the weekend. My goodness. That sure got me busy. So, I got to get out there now. And we got the equipment. We got to get out there and try to do some serious field studies. And all the ducks are not quite lined up yet, right? We're waiting for the weather, because we had all this snow, but we had heavy winds, so there's a lot of dry patches, and we have a lot of barrens in this area. So you have a lot of dry patches. You might have to go miles on the skidoo with no snow to get into the snow again, right? So it's very hard on your equipment. And I'm desperate to get some field studies in, but I'm also, fortunately for me, I'm busted up, so it's harder for me to go do something stupid. But the plan might be to go out camping for 6 or 7 days. Minus 20 wind chills or worse. That should be interesting. I got insulated tarps I can put under my tent. And I got insulated tarps I can put on the floor of the tent. I got a 4-season tent, right? And I got, I got nice generators, Honda generators. I got all the equipment necessary to go do it. I'm just not very healthy, but if I can pull this off, I'm going to go do it. We need to do some field studies. Because you get snow every day, any tracks you're seeing is fresh tracks, and that's a big deal. If you don't see any tracks during that whole period, That's a big freaking deal. That's a horrific. Probably one of the most important studies I could do is that particular study. But can I make it work? I'm not Greenpeace, right? And so I'm being very careful to set myself up to try to pull this off. And if not, we can do day studies, right? Still field studies. But ideally, you'd like to go out and cover a couple 100 miles of hardcore territory. And it's crazy that I'm even saying stuff like this, but that's what we're trying to do. It'd be nice if you had 2 or 3 skidoos and you had all kinds of equipment and people and get out there and get the job done, right? And everybody's nice and safe. Going out there by myself, old broken man. I'm pretty smart, but I'm not immune to the environment, unfortunately, right? If I was a nuclear scientist, I'd be immune to all that. I can go out in my shorts all middle of winter and couldn't fucking hurt me, right? Alrighty. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up on the likes. And we're going to play a song now. An anti-nuclear song. James just published another anti-nuclear song. I listened to his other songs. And I got some of them in my playlist. I got to put the rest of them, listen to the rest of them and put them in my playlist. And we're going to play his latest song. I can't wait to hear that one. That's so awesome. Oh, Rocky Flats Waltz. Rocky Flats Waltz. And you see this picture up there at the top of his screen? That's T-shirts. That's his T-shirts that he bought from my website. Is what you're looking at. They're not pictures per se, right? They're the front and the back. What would you rather have? Birds, bees, or nuclear power? That's probably one of my favorite T-shirts, by the way. And I think that's probably one of the most amazing pictures I've ever seen. Bless your heart, James. It blows my mind when I see that. James sent me a text today. Let me read some of this. I got to read some of this to you because. No, I thank good I slept last night. I slept today till almost later than I've ever slept in a long time. Just because I'm worn out, right? But he sent me this text. Not a text. It's a screen capture about AI. And when I was reading, I was laughing the whole time. I mean, I was cracking up. We're talking about AI. Imagine so basically, imagine AI is so smart in the near future that it fact checks all the pro-nuclear stories and corrects them. Because that's what's coming, right? And among all other, a whole bunch of other stuff he's got there. But he's right when you talk about that. Imagine artificial intelligence fact checking the mainstream media stories and correcting it in real time. It's not like a banana. It's not like a potato chip. It's not like walking in the sunshine. Can you imagine this industry? This is why they're panicking and they're promoting so much the fake small modular reactors, which don't even exist, etc., 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 to gouge and loot as much money as they can before reality sets in for the population. I think the pro-nuclear community is why we have the death penalty in the first place. I'm going to stop this, put it in 1080, and then restart the video. So just bear with me 1 second while I do that. Well, first off, let me put that in my playlist. So I don't forget to do that. And James just published this song. So I'm going to sit with you guys and enjoy it. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you make it this far. And we'll see everybody on the next show. Have a great night and a great day tomorrow. And hopefully I'll be live again tomorrow night. Take care.
Welcome to Rocky Flats, where the past is well contained. Perimeter scans are clear, there's nothing to explain. Fresh new homes, streets are bright, nothing hidden, nothing slight. Acting nights rest, they settle deep. No risk remains, no need to keep. Half-life drifts, the filings show. No concern, just let it go. Spin and sway, don't ask why. Plutonium lingers, but out of sight. Brick by brick, the deal holds fast. Bury the waste, build the past. FBI came, they checked it twice. Reports were filed, the numbers sliced. Storage ponds, containment sites, all accounted, all precise. Leak could get logged, a small concern. Bound in clauses set to burn. Decontamination, signed and sealed. Nothing lost, just reappealed. Processing rooms, sealed and drained. Plutonium pits, fire retained. Ratios checked, the math was clear. Until they built the homes right here. Spin and sway, don't ask why. Plutonium lingers, but out of sight. Brick by brick, the deal holds fast. Bury the waste, build the past. 2-acre lots of future planned. Over burial sites now turn to sand. Isotopic drift moves unseen, yet every test confirms it's clean. Another house, another key, another name in registry. The land is clear, the studies show what's left beneath they'll never know. Rocky Flats, a perfect home, built where time has overgrown.